name's Jake Harper, a 32-year-old cop with 8 years on the force. I'm not the kind of guy who scares easily. Growing up on the rough edges of Chicago, I've seen enough crazy to toughen my nerves. But some nights, some calls, make you wonder if the world is really what you think it is. That night at the rundown apartment complex on Marwood Street was one of those nights. It was a frigid October shift, my breath fogging in the air as my new partner, Sarah Malone, 28, and I got the call from dispatch. Domestic disturbance, possible violence. The dispatcher's voice crackled with a tremor that hinted at something off. The address was apartment 4B, 1185 Marwood, a part of town I rarely patrolled. Marwood was a place time forgot. Cracked brick buildings, sun-bleached curtains, and a stale, moldy smell that clung to everything. It wasn't where you'd expect trouble, but trouble has a way of finding the quietest corners. Sarah, her blonde hair tied back tight and her eyes sharp as knives, glanced at me as we pulled up to the complex. "What's the vibe, Jake? Another couple spat?" Her tone was half joking, but I caught the tension in how she gripped the steering wheel. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. Maybe, but something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it, just a cold prickle down my spine like someone was watching from the shadows. We stepped out of the cruiser, the streetlight flickering weakly, casting warped shadows on the pavement. The building loomed ahead, silent as a crypt. The hum of the city, cars, sirens seemed to vanish, swallowed by the stillness of this place. I knocked on the main door, calling out, "Police, open up!" No response. I knocked again, harder, nothing. But then from inside I heard it, a faint sound like a muffled whisper trapped behind thin walls. Sarah's eyes met mine, her brow furrowing. "You hear that?" "Yeah," I whispered, my heart picking up speed. "Sounds like voices, but distant." We locked eyes and I knew she felt it too, that creeping dread like we were stepping into somewhere we didn't belong. "Breach it," I said, my voice low but firm. Sarah nodded and we shouldered the door. The old wood groaned and splintered, revealing a dark hallway thick with the stench of mildew and dust. Inside apartment 4B, everything looked normal, too normal. A worn-out sofa, a few framed family photos on the wall, and a coffee table with 2 porcelain mugs. One tipped over, the coffee long cold. No signs of a fight, no shouting, no overturned furniture. Just silence, heavy and oppressive, like the room was holding its breath. I called out, "Police! Anyone here?" No answer, but then I heard it, a sob. It started soft, like a child's whimper, but it didn't stop. It was steady, rhythmic, like a distorted lullaby. Sarah grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. "Jake, you hear that? It's coming from inside." I nodded, my chest tightening. The sobbing led us down a hallway to a bedroom door, slightly ajar, a sliver of dim light spilling out. Each step echoed on the creaky floorboards like the apartment was answering our presence. I pushed the bedroom door open and the sobbing grew sharper, more desperate. But the room was empty. No one was there. Just an old bed, some scattered clothes, and a thick layer of dust coating everything. The window was shut, tattered blinds swaying faintly, though there was no breeze. "What the hell?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. She pulled out her flashlight, sweeping it across the room, but the beam only made the shadows thicker. Then I saw it, a small figure huddled in the corner, its back to us. It wore a long black gown, its tangled hair spilling over its shoulders. The sobbing came from it, but it didn't move, as if cradling something. My heart pounded, sweat beading on my temples. "Ma'am," I called, my voice hoarse. "Are you okay?" No response, just the sobbing now cutting through the air like a blade. I stepped closer, each movement heavy, like the air was pushing me back. Sarah grabbed my arm, whispering, "Jake, don't. Something's wrong." But I couldn't stop. I had to know. I reached out, my hand trembling, and touched the figure's shoulder. In that instant, the sobbing stopped. A suffocating silence fell, like the world had frozen. Then the figure turned slowly, deliberately. I wish I'd never seen that face. It wasn't human, not anymore. No eyes, just two black hollows like voids that swallowed light. Its mouth gaped wide, twisted in a silent scream, its pale, waxy skin glistening with something liquid or blood, dripping onto the floor. I stumbled back, my breath catching, my heart hammering like it would burst. "Jake!" Sarah screamed, but her voice sounded miles away. I couldn't tear my eyes from the thing. It reached for me, its fingers long and claw-like, curling toward my face. Then suddenly the sobbing started again. Not from the figure, but from the hallway, from deep within the building, like a chorus of anguished voices. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. When I looked back, the figure was gone. The room was as empty as when we'd entered. We ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs, out of the building. The sobbing chased us, echoing in the stairwell, in the elevator shaft, like a living thing feeding on our fear. When we reached the cruiser, I glanced back at the building. A shadow stood at the window of 4B, motionless, watching us. Sarah gripped my hand, whispering, "Don't look. Just drive." We never spoke of that night again. Sarah transferred units a few months later, and I don't blame her, but I can't forget. Sometimes in the quiet of a late shift, I hear that sobbing, soft, rhythmic, like a reminder. I know it's still there in the dark corners of Marwood, in the forgotten buildings. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I see that eyeless face calling me back. Would you dare step into a place like that? A place where the sobbing never stops and the things you see never leave you? I'm not sure you'd want to know the answer. I'm Matt Sullivan, 35, a cop in Monroe County, Ohio. 10 years on the job, I thought I'd seen the darkest parts of this world, from brutal homicides to high-speed chases that left my heart in my throat. But some places, some moments, show you that darkness isn't just in people. Sometimes it lives in the walls, in the air, in the history of a place. Crestwood Asylum was one of those places. It was a bone-chilling November night, my breath freezing as soon as it left my mouth. The call came in at midnight. A trespasser at Crestwood, an abandoned psychiatric hospital on the edge of town. Crestwood wasn't unfamiliar. It was every kid's nightmare, with tales of tortured patients, restless spirits, and shadows that moved in the dark. 3 decades since it shut down, it still stood rotting like a scar on the landscape. I pulled up to the main gate, my headlights sweeping over rusted iron bars. The gate hung open, its padlock smashed, lying in the dirt. Who the hell breaks into a place like this? I muttered, a shiver crawling up my spine. I stepped out of the cruiser, the wind biting my skin, carrying the smell of wet earth and something else. Decay. like the place was rotting from the inside out. Inside, the asylum was a labyrinth of shadows. My flashlight cut through the gloom, illuminating peeling walls, broken tiles, and shattered glass crunching under my boots. The wind howled through broken windows, sounding like a chorus of whispers. I called out, "Police! Whoever's in here, come out now!" My voice echoed, but no one answered. Just silence, thick and heavy, like the place was waiting. Then I heard it. A footstep, quick and light, from deep in the corridor. My heart kicked into overdrive, adrenaline surging. I ran toward the sound, my boots slapping against the cracked tiles, the noise like thunder in the stillness. The hallway seemed to stretch forever, corners leading me deeper into the dark. I caught a glimpse of a figure, just a shadow, fleeting, vanishing behind a door. "Freeze!" I shouted, but it was gone. I stopped at the door, an old wooden one, different from the rusted metal ones around it. It was bolted shut, the bolt rusted like it hadn't been touched in years. I heard breathing, soft but distinct from the other side. "Who's there?" I called, my voice shaky despite my best efforts. No answer, but then a click. Like someone was sliding the bolt open from inside. I grabbed the bolt, my hand trembling. Before I could pull, another footstep sounded behind me. I spun, my flashlight sweeping the hallway. Another figure, tall, thin, moving too fast to make out, disappeared into the shadows. My pulse pounded in my ears. "Damn it," I muttered, turning back to the door. The bolt was undone, though I hadn't touched it. I pushed the door open, stepping into a room drowned in darkness. The air was heavy, pressing against my chest. My flashlight caught peeling walls, torn medical papers on the floor, and a small wooden crate in the corner. It didn't belong here, too new, too intact compared to the decay around it. I moved toward it, each step pulling me deeper into a nightmare. As I touched the crate, footsteps sounded again, right behind me. I whipped around, but nothing was there, just darkness. Then the door slammed shut, the sound like a gunshot. I lunged for the handle, yanking, but it wouldn't budge. My heart raced, my breath ragged. "Open the door!" I shouted, but only a low, guttural laugh answered from deep within the walls. I turned back to the crate, and there it was. A figure standing behind it, tall, with glowing white eyes piercing the dark. "Who are you?" I whispered, but it didn't answer. It just stared, its eyes boring into my mind. Then suddenly the door flew open and I stumbled into the hallway, gasping. When I looked back, the room was empty. The crate was still there, but the figure was gone. I ran, not looking back, until I reached my cruiser. That night I left Crestwood with more questions than answers. I reported no one found, but I knew the truth. Something was in that asylum, not human, not a memory. It was waiting, and I felt it watching me from the dark corridors of Crestwood. Would you dare step into a place like that? A place where the darkness doesn't just watch, it calls your name? I'm Ethan Brooks, 29, a cop in Benton County, Kentucky. Working the rural beat, you get used to the dark, the kind that swallows light, making you feel like the last person on earth. But some nights on Highway 13, I learned the darkness isn't empty, it's watching, and it has a face. It was a bitter February night, fog crawling thick over the empty fields. I was patrolling with my partner, Lucas Grant, 34. a veteran with an easy smile but eyes sharp as blades. We'd just finished a report when we saw her, a young woman, maybe 22, standing on the shoulder near the old bridge on Highway 13. That bridge was infamous. Accidents, disappearances, shadows in the fog. No one stopped there. Ever. She wore a faded jacket, her dark hair a tangled mess, thumb out for a ride. Lucas eased off the gas, glancing at me. What's she doing out here in the middle of nowhere? I shrugged, but my heart was pounding. Something was off, her eyes blank like she wasn't really there. Pull over, I said, keeping my voice steady. We stopped and she opened the back door, sliding in without a word. The door slammed and the air in the cruiser felt heavier. I glanced in the rear view. She sat there, staring straight ahead, her eyes cloudy like cracked glass. Where you headed? I asked, trying to lighten the mood. No answer. Lucas shot me a look, raising an eyebrow. Maybe she's just tired. Let it go. We drove. The engines hummed, the only sound in the stifling silence. As we crossed the bridge, I checked the rear view and the back seat was empty. No girl, no sign she'd ever been there. I slammed the brakes, the cruiser skidding. What the hell? Lucas yelled, his hand on his holster. Where'd she go? I didn't answer. I knew I'd seen her. I'd heard the door, but she was gone. We backed up, headlights sweeping the area. No footprints, no trace of anyone leaving the car. Lucas muttered, maybe she jumped out when we weren't looking. But his voice shook and I knew he didn't believe it. We drove back to the station in silence, but I felt her eyes on me, lingering in the dark. A week later, it happened again. I was with Mia Torres, 27, a rookie with a curious glint in her eye. We saw the girl, same spot, same jacket, same vacant stare. Mia opened the door, calling, "Need a lift?" The girl slid in, silent as before. I drove, my heart hammering, knowing what was coming. As we crossed the bridge, I didn't dare look in the mirror, but I felt it, the emptiness. I hit the brakes and Mia turned. She's gone, she whispered, her face pale. We searched but found nothing. Mia started asking questions, but I had no answers. Then weeks later, it happened to Officer Ryan Holt, 31. He saw the girl, let her in, and when they crossed the bridge, she vanished. But Ryan didn't let it go. He stopped, got out, and searched the area on foot. The next morning, his cruiser was found, empty. Ryan was gone, no trace. Rumors spread through the station. Some said she was the ghost of a crash victim from the bridge. Others thought something worse, a thing that hunted anyone who stopped. I don't know the truth, but I know this. Every time I drive Highway 13, I see her in the fog, standing there waiting. I don't stop anymore, but sometimes in the dark I feel her behind me, whispering something I'm too scared to hear. Would you stop for her? Or would you keep driving, praying the darkness doesn't follow? I'm Emily Carter, 30, a 911 dispatcher in Polk County, Iowa. 5 years in this job, I've heard it all. Car wrecks, domestic fights, desperate screams, but some calls aren't like the others. They cling to you, worming into your dreams, making you question if you're safe when you pick up the phone. That call on a chilly April night was one of them. The shift started quiet, too quiet. The clock read 12:03 a.m. and I was sipping cold coffee, trying to stay awake. Then the phone rang, and I answered on instinct. 911, what's your emergency? No response, just heavy, trembling breathing like the caller was fighting to hold back terror. Hello? Are you there? I asked, a chill creeping up my spine. Then a woman's voice broke through, frantic, shattering. They're in the house. Please help me. I don't know who they are, but they're coming. My heart leapt, adrenaline kicking in. I kept my voice calm, trained to anchor them. Okay, stay calm. Where are you? What's your address? She sobbed, her voice trembling. I don't know. It's an old house, big. Please, they're coming up the stairs. I hear them. Before I could ask more, the line went dead. No dial tone, no static, just silence. But the call didn't disconnect. The line stayed open like someone was still there, listening. I pulled the address from the system. 472 Elm Street, a house abandoned since the 70s. No one had lived there in decades. I dispatched 2 officers, David Nguyen, 33, and Chloe Bennett, 29, to the scene. When they arrived, David's voice came through the radio tight. Dispatch, we're at the address. No lights, no signs of life. This place looks like it's been empty for years. I frowned, unease rising. You sure? The caller said there were intruders. David cut in. Positive. But something's off. We're going in. They entered the house and I heard their footsteps over the radio, slow, cautious. The air in the dispatch room felt heavier, like the darkness from that house was seeping through the line. Then Chloe spoke, her voice shaking. Dispatch, it's empty. No furniture, just dust and torn wallpaper, but I hear something like whispering. Whispering? I asked, my heart pounding. David jumped in, his voice low. Yeah, and hold on, there's a phone on the floor. It's warm. My blood ran cold. A phone? You didn't see it before? No response. Just static, then Chloe's scream. Get out! Get out now! The radio cut off. I shouted into the mic, but nothing came back. 5 minutes passed, each one an eternity. Then the radio crackled, but it wasn't David or Chloe. A woman's voice, cold and distant, spoke. I'm still here. They won't leave. The house, it won't let me go. I froze, my hand shaking as I hit the mic. Who are you? Where are David and Chloe? No answer, just whispers. Dozens of voices blending into a chilling chorus. Backup Officer Michael Reed, 36, reached the scene later. He found David and Chloe's cruiser, but they were gone. The house stood silent, as if no one had ever entered. Michael reported, his voice flat but trembling. Dispatch, they're not here. The car's empty. The house, it's wrong. Like it swallowed them. The house on Elm Street was sealed off, but no one could explain what happened. David and Chloe were never found. For me, every phone ring at night makes me hesitate. I hear that voice in my dreams in the dark. I'm still here. And I wonder if I answer the next call, will she be waiting? Would you answer a call like that? A call from a place that doesn't exist, from someone who shouldn't be alive? I'm Noah Daniels, 34, a cop in Albany, New York. Working the night shift at the precinct isn't always a picnic. In the dead of night, when the city sleeps, the station becomes its own world. Quiet, cold, and sometimes terrifying. I'm used to the silence, the ticking clock, the hum of fluorescent lights. But 3 weeks ago, something changed. Something that didn't belong here. My partner was Olivia Reed, 31, a tough officer with a sarcastic smile and eyes that missed nothing. That night, we were in the holding area where a few drunks and a petty thief were locked up. The clock read 2:47 a.m., and the precinct was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Then I saw it. A shadow, long and thin, darting across the hallway near the cells. It wasn't human. It moved too fast, like ink spilling through water, vanishing before I could blink. I shot to my feet, my heart racing. "Olivia, did you see that?" I called, keeping my voice low. She looked up from her paperwork, frowning. "See what? You hallucinating now?" But I knew I wasn't. I'd seen it. Minutes later, it appeared again, clearer between the cells. It was tall, thin, its shape distorted like a stretched silhouette. It glided from one cell to another as if watching the prisoners. "Olivia, look," I whispered, pointing. She squinted but shook her head. "Noah, there's nothing. You're tired." We checked the security cameras. Nothing. The screens were clean, like the shadow didn't exist, but I knew what I'd seen. The next night it came back, standing still at the end of the hallway, watching me. My eyes strained to make it out, but it vanished when I blinked. Olivia started getting nervous, though she wouldn't admit it. She checked the hallways constantly, her hand always near her holster. On the third night, things got worse. I was doing paperwork when I heard a tapping, soft but distinct from the holding area. It grew louder, like someone knocking on the cell bars. I looked up and the shadow was there, not moving, standing in front of a cell. This time I saw it clearly. Taller than any man, its limbs unnaturally long, its face, if you could call it that, twisted, eyeless, just a void. "Noah!" Olivia screamed, but her voice sounded distant. I stepped toward the shadow, my heart pounding. As I got closer, it vanished, but a whisper rose, low, guttural, like dozens of voices blending together. I couldn't make out the words, but they chilled me to the bone. I ran to the front desk, but Olivia was gone. I called over the radio, "Olivia, where are you?" No answer. I raced to the holding area and found her standing at the end of the hallway, staring into the dark. Her face was pale, her eyes glassy. "Olivia, let's go!" I shouted, grabbing her arm. She jerked away, whispering, "Don't look at it, Noah. It's not right." Before I could react, the precinct door slammed shut and a voice spoke, low, cold, like it was inside my head. "Leave." We were trapped in the precinct for hours, the shadow lurking everywhere in the dark, in the air. When the door finally opened, we ran, not looking back. Olivia took leave a few weeks later, and I don't blame her. I haven't seen the shadow since, but every night shift I feel it, behind me in the corner of my eye. The precinct isn't safe anymore, it's waiting, and I know one day it'll call my name. Would you work a shift alone in a place like that? A place where the darkness doesn't just watch, it knows your name.